talking to us about Twitter. And joining me now to talk more about Twitter's first day of trading is co-founder of Brand Ads, Ryan Pamplin in San Francisco. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
So Ryan, I want to start off by asking you, Twitter opened at $45.10 today. Now that's valuing the company over $24 billion. How surprised were you to see those numbers come out?
Well, you know, $26 sounded like a pretty fair price, and they'd already moved it up from what they were initially going to price it at. So to see it hit the market in the mid-40s, that was surprising for me. But at the end of the day, what you've really got here is far more demand than you have supply. They only put out 70 million shares. They only raised $1.8 billion. So there's plenty of opportunity for them to put out more shares. And I think strategically, they may have done the right thing here to get the value up so high out of the gate.
Okay, so they've got the value up really high, but do you think that Twitter is overvalued? We have a lot of people, a lot of naysayers in the market that say that perhaps there's too much hype around the price. Do you agree?
Well, certainly there's a lot of hype. I can't deny that. But what I can tell you is that I have experience working with a lot of Fortune 500 companies using the Twitter platform to drive awareness and sales, and it definitely works. So as someone who's inside the advertising industry, I am very confident that these guys are going to be able to move over from this growth mode into this mode of figuring out how to derive value out of this giant global communications network that they've created. So for that reason, I would say that today, yes, based on revenue, it's overvalued and it's hyped. But long term, looking at, let's say, the end of the decade, this could be a stock in the hundreds of dollars.
You talk about revenue. Let's talk about profit. So what we know is that Twitter till date has never turned a profit. So what do you think Twitter's value is really being based on here?
Well, it's all based on speculation. It's based on what people think that the team that's running Twitter is going to be able to do when it comes to advertising. And Twitter's really got to create a suite of advertising products that's going to attract the billions of dollars. Nearly $200 billion is being spent this year on television globally. They've got to get some of that money. That accounts for 58% of all advertising spend, television. So Twitter's got to create new ad formats and new opportunities for advertisers to come in, maybe even take their TV ads or their digital video ads and run those against video content within the Twitter platform. New formats for content and new formats for ads, I think, are what are really going to drive growth and ultimately profit for Twitter.
Okay, so we talk about advertising there, but what else do they need to do other than just advertising? How else can they bring in money other than just through ads?
I think if you look at Google, you look at Facebook, it's very clear that advertising is going to be the lion's share of their revenue, at least for the foreseeable future. But there is a lot of value from the incredible wealth of information that Twitter has. You've got news networks getting breaking news from Twitter, world leaders, business leaders, all breaking news on Twitter. And it's sort of this global influence network. And there is value there in the data. And I expect that they will figure out ways to make money off of licensing that data, maybe making predictions on that data. And they're already doing this a little bit today, licensing sort of the fire hose of all tweets to a handful of companies who are using this for a variety of things like social media monitoring. But the revenues from that, I don't think are very substantial yet. And we'll have to wait and see if they figure out new inventive ways to drive revenue from that data.
Ryan, really quickly, just before you go, how big do you think Twitter will get? I'm quite bullish on Twitter. I use Twitter every day. Are you bullish on Twitter?
I am bullish on Twitter. Twitter is one of the biggest IPOs that we've seen in a while, and it's going to be one of the biggest that we're going to see for a while as far as Silicon Valley is concerned. I think there's an enormous opportunity here for growth, and I think they've yet to even scratch the surface of the value of Twitter, and I have very high hopes long term. It's also a very low commitment as a user to get into Twitter. I don't have to create a profile and populate it. I can just consume content, and if I do want to share, it's only 140 characters.
Right.
So I think the ease of getting new people into the platform around the world is much less of a challenge than what Facebook has to deal with.
Great. Well, thank you for those insightful comments, Ryan. That was Ryan Pamphlet, co-founder of Brand Ads, joining us there from San Francisco.